Good afternoon. A Brampton neighborhood has been left shaken after flames tore through a home early this morning.
2 people were killed and 4 others, including a child, were sent to hospital in critical condition. CTV's Janice Golding has been following the investigation. And Janice, emergency crews say they're still searching for several people.
They certainly are, Nathan. I can tell you that we are in northwest Brampton right now, where a family is reeling after a devastating house fire. Brampton Fire tells us that they received multiple calls at around 2:13 a.m. to go to a home in the McLaughlin and Remembrance Road area. And when they arrived, the house was heavily engulfed. Firefighters would find 2 people who were deceased, one discovered just inside the home, with another victim located just outside. 4 other residents were transported to hospital in serious condition, including a 4- or 5-year-old child who was taken to the hospital for sick children. At this point, there are also 3 people who are unaccounted for. Family we've spoken to on scene, who declined to speak on camera, tell CTV News there were 9 people from the same family who lived in the home, including several children and a woman who is 8 months pregnant. They say 2 people were also renting accommodations here. Here is more from emergency responders.
Right now, we have 3 unaccounted for that we are working with the Office of the Fire Marshal and Priestley Excavation to slowly dismantle this unit to look for any other individuals that might be still inside. We are unable to locate them. Doesn't mean they're inside. It just means that we can't locate them at this point in time.
It's very difficult to ascertain specifics when we don't have occupants of the home able to give us reports. So we believe that there are 11 individuals associated to the structure in total, 9 of which being a multi-generational family and 2 potentially associated to a subunit in the structure, but that's not confirmed yet. So we've got potentially 3 people unaccounted for that may be in the residence. We just don't know yet.
At this point, Brampton Fire tells us that the child who is at Sick Kids is moving towards stable condition. We do not have the ages or genders of the 2 who died in this fire. The investigation continues. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
All right, thank you, Janice. Still to come, Prime Minister Mark Carney signed an investment protection agreement with the United Arab Emirates. We'll have more on the trade deal a little later in the newscast.
5 pedestrians were injured at Pearson Airport this morning following a crash involving multiple vehicles. This happened just before 7 a.m. at Terminal 3. Police say 6 vehicles were involved in the crash, which may have been the result of a medical episode. 3 of the 5 pedestrians who were injured had to be taken to hospital. All suffered minor injuries. Police say all the drivers involved remained on scene. Investigators have not provided further details about the nature of this potential medical episode.
Toronto Police launched their annual Festive RIDE campaign this morning.
Impaired driving continues to be one of the leading causes of criminal death on our highways. We have had 34 people die already in OPP investigations this year in alcohol or drug-related crashes. We do tens of thousands of ride events every single year, and this year is no exception. And now as we launch the Festive RIDE campaign, it's just an awareness campaign to really remind people that they're going out. If you're going to be drinking, don't drive. If you're going to be driving, don't drink. It is up to everyone's responsibility to make sure we all get home safely, and we need to share the roads in a way that we can all feel safe and secure.
The initiative promotes traffic enforcement and awareness. It will see an increased police presence throughout the holiday season to make sure people are obeying the rules of the road.
The Ford government is introducing legislation to prioritize Ontario-made goods and services in the procurement process. The Buy Ontario Act is expected to be tabled at Queen's Park today. It's a direct response to the ongoing trade war with the U.S. CTV News has learned the legislation will mandate Ontario-made goods and services be given top priority, with Canadian-made goods and services coming in second. The new rules would apply to all Ontario ministries, organizations, and agencies, as well as the broader public sector. Municipalities, contractors, and subcontractors would also be covered, and breaking the rules could result in fines.
The battle over York Region's new recycling system continues. Mayors of the 6 municipalities say they've had enough and are demanding smaller blue bins for residents. They argue the new 95-gallon carts are too big and too heavy for many households and don't fit in walk-up apartments or single-car garages. The province agrees smaller bins should be offered, but the company taking over collection as of January 1st hasn't committed to offering an alternative.
The city opened the new Rouge Valley Community Recreation Centre in Scarborough this morning.
The facility features Toronto's first indoor cricket pitch. CTV's Alison Hurst joins us live with more on the new rec centre, and it seems like cricket really growing here in Toronto.
Nathan, it certainly is. There was lots of excitement. Even Mayor Chow herself was playing some cricket earlier this morning. But yes, as you mentioned, the new Rouge Valley Community Recreation Centre is now fully open for everyone. And this is in the area of Joyce Trimmer Park. The Recreation Centre offers childcare, a 25-meter lap pool, a leisure pool, a full-size gym big enough to accommodate cricket matches as well. There are also public and administrative support spaces and a biodiverse green roof terrace. This is the city's first net zero energy and emissions community recreation centre. Back in 2004, City Council then identified this area of Northeast Scarborough as one with an unmet need of having parks and recreation facilities. It was then made a priority location for a community centre project, and this project began to take shape with public meetings back in 2016.
It's incredible to have a space that people can gather. For far too long, Scarborough fell behind in terms of the public infrastructure. It's really important to have good social infrastructure so that people can come together and have a place where they connect and have a real good sense of belonging. And this is what the community center would do. So I'm extremely pleased to be able to open it today.
City staff say that the total cost before taxes was $90.7 million. Reporting live, I'm Alison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. And we have lots more news in a moment. But first, let's take a moment to have a look outside at our beautiful city this afternoon. Nice, bright sunshine out there. And the best part, we're gradually warming up as we near the end of the work week. This is a nice little bonus there, Lindsay Morrison.
Yeah, and you know what, Michelle, by tomorrow, our forecast daytime high in the double digits, which will be a nice change as well. Today, not bad either, though. It is 5 degrees at this hour, on our way to a forecast daytime high of 7. And it is nice to enjoy that sunshine because November is traditionally a pretty cloudy month. So we'll take these days that we've been enjoying. Winds coming from a different direction today, more so out of the southeast right now. Still pretty calm, not overly strong. And there's all that sunshine you can see across southern Ontario, the Golden Horseshoe. You might find a little more cloud in Windsor and around Georgian Bay, in through Muskoka also. Here's your today at a glance. 7 degrees, our forecast daytime high, mix of sun and cloud. I mentioned it's going to be mild tomorrow. It is also going to be a little bit windy, and we do have the potential for some isolated showers. So we'll take you through your Friday forecast and into the weekend coming up. For now, Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Abu Dhabi this morning, where he signed an investment protection agreement with the United Arab Emirates.
Carney says there are now full-scale free trade talks with the UAE aimed at creating a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. CTV's Rachel Ayello is traveling with the Prime Minister and has more on these talks.
Prime Minister Mark Carney started his first full day here in Abu Dhabi meeting with top government officials. First, it was the United Arab Emirates Industry Minister and then the President of the UAE. It was the first in-person bilateral meeting between Canadian and Emirati leaders in 42 years. Coming out of that meeting, the PMO confirmed Carney and his counterpart signed a new foreign investment protection agreement, creating a more predictable environment between Canadian industries and one of the world's wealthiest countries. The two leaders also launched negotiations towards a new free trade agreement that would cut tariffs, reduce barriers, and expand market access for Canadian exporters. A readout of the meeting issued by Carney's office also indicated this deal, once done, would facilitate billions of dollars in UAE investment into major port, mine, LNG, and critical mineral projects in Canada. During the sit-down, which Canadian media did not have access to, the pair also discussed a range of regional security issues in the Middle East and Africa. And while the PMO wouldn't confirm it, the crisis in Sudan was expected to be raised. He then visited the largest mosque in the country, where he remarked about the symbols of unity integrated throughout its intricate design from floor to ceiling. This afternoon, Carney has more meetings, including with the heads of sovereign wealth funds, CEOs, and will be having dinner with the UAE's National Security Advisor. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Abu Dhabi.
A new report from Dalhousie University's Agriculture and Food Analytics Lab says food insecurity is at a record high in Canada. Just over a quarter of respondents to the survey say they struggle to afford food, while nearly half say they seek out sales and discounts due to inflation. Affordability has become the largest factor impacting food purchasing decisions for Canadians, followed by nutrition and taste. And CTV's Scott Hurst has been following this story and joins us with more on the data. Scott, this latest report outlines a stark reality for many Canadians as food insecurity reaches a record high. What do the numbers here tell us about Canadians across the country?
Nathan, a lot of tough choices for Canadians when they go to the grocery store when it comes to how much food they can put on the table and ultimately the quality of the food that they can bring home to feed their families as food continues to dominate household financial concerns across the country. A whole lot of issues when it comes to affordability, and that does remain really the top concern for Canadians when they're in the grocery aisle, when they're trying to bring home food for their families. With trips to the grocery store continuing to eat away at already tight budgets, average household food spending increased in this latest report. Another stark reminder of the affordability concerns comes down to food insecurity, with the report showing that is now topping 25%, a quarter of respondents showing many Canadians in a very tough spot. And we've seen this play out in many reports from food banks, whether they're very Toronto specific or talking about food bank need across the country. More and more Canadians not knowing if they can afford where their next meal is coming from. Here's more from one of the co-authors of the report.
Canadians are adopting frugal habits, like switching brands, looking for coupons, discounts when they're buying products. If a product is too expensive, they even change their diet.
And Nathan, let's point out one bright spot from the report, and that's a renewed enthusiasm for Canadian-made products, supporting local farmers, supporting domestic producers. A majority of respondents to the survey say they now always or often choose local foods over other options when it's possible. If there's one thing that'll rival affordability, according to the report, that is trust and transparency, and more Canadians are seeing that in local products, Nathan.
So looking ahead, Scott, could there be any relief for Canadians to look forward to?
Well, Canadians are still expecting food prices to increase, continue to rise over the next year, with, however, fewer anticipating those extremes that we have seen, really that sticker shock that we got used to over the past couple of years when it went to going down the grocery aisle, which ultimately signals cautious optimism that food costs may stabilize somewhat in 2026, Nathan. So not so much that we're expecting food prices to go down, but at the very least, Canadians are hoping and expecting that we won't see those massive price increases that we have seen before.
All right, good to hear. CTV's Scott Hurst in the CTV National Newsroom. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
A trade agreement has been reached between the provinces, territories, and the federal government to bring down trade barriers across our country. British Columbia's Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth announced the agreement, saying it marks the largest red tape reduction in Canadian history. This deal means if a good can be sold legally in one province or territory, it can also be sold without extra rules or approvals in other provinces.
It means more choices, competitive pricing, and some same trusted standards across the country. And for global investors and companies, we're talking about ease of doing business, reliable and high sustainable standards, and integrated supply chains.
The agreement will take effect next month and applies to thousands of products. However, it does not include food, beverages, tobacco, plants, and animals.
CTV News has learned a deal is close at hand with the federal government that would allow a proposed pipeline to carry Alberta oil to the BC coast. While Ottawa is reportedly negotiating with Alberta, there is so far no private backer for the pipeline. BC Premier David Eby has repeatedly rejected the idea of a pipeline going to his province's coast. Officials there also say exempting the project from a tanker ban in northern BC could derail billions of dollars worth of local projects. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has argued a new pipeline is crucial to help her province's oil reach new markets in Asia.
Pablo Rodriguez, a leader of Quebec's Liberal Party, has ordered an inquiry into an alleged votes for cash scheme.
He claims he does not know anything about allegations that party members may have been paid to vote for him. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin has the details.
Quebec Liberal leader Pablo Rodriguez faced a barrage of questions.
Je n'ai rien à cacher. Rien à cacher.
And he repeatedly denied any knowledge of allegations of a vote for cash scheme to get him elected leader.
I have nothing to hide. I'm fully transparent, and I don't accept that my party's attacked like this.
Rodriguez took the helm of the provincial Liberals in June in a hotly contested race. This week, in the wake of turmoil over firing within the party, the investigative unit of Québécois Media published what it alleges are text messages between two elected officials. One reportedly discusses getting the vote out for Rodriguez. A separate one allegedly refers to party members getting a brownie for voting. Rodriguez warned people against reaching conclusions until an inquiry is done, saying nothing confirms whether the texts are real or falsified.
What I've said is that there's a few textos this morning, not related to anyone, no source confirmed, no phone number, nothing.
Grande défaite pour Montréal, Monsieur le Président. Before making the move to provincial politics, Rodriguez was a long-time federal Liberal MP, a former cabinet minister and Quebec lieutenant. Some of his former colleagues expressed confidence in Rodriguez in Ottawa, including Minister of Transport Stephen McKinnon, who called him a friend. The party says vague allegations that were dismissed as unfounded were made in the spring. Now, this investigation is expected to go quickly. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Over in Alberta, the government is facing backlash for invoking the notwithstanding clause for the second time in weeks.
This time it was to shield 3 laws impacting transgender Albertans from legal challenges. CTV's Kathy Lee has the details.
In a week meant to honor trans visibility, those in the community say they've never felt more invisible or more vulnerable in Alberta.
A real gut punch. And we're reeling. It's been a very heavy, difficult few days.
Feeling the weight of the UCP government's move after it tabled legislation invoking the notwithstanding clause, which shields 3 transgender-focused laws from any court challenge.
We're very confident in our position. We always have been. We always will be.
The government says it consulted teachers, doctors, and coaches on Bill 9, which bans hormone therapy for kids under 16 and gender-affirming surgery for those under 18. Requires parental consent for pronoun changes in school and makes sexual health class opt-in only, and blocks trans athletes over 12 from competing in female sports, requiring proof of gender at birth.
Seeing my government target such a small amount of our provincial population is absolutely appalling when truly we're just trying to live our lives in our own peace and in our own lane.
This is the second time this fall session the UCP has used the notwithstanding clause. Just weeks ago, it was invoked to force striking teachers back to work.
Yesterday was teachers. Today's transgender people. Who's next?
The notwithstanding clause, by normalizing its use to protect harmful legislation targeting communities, we're weakening the foundations of our democracy.
2 of the 3 bills are facing court challenges, and a group called Queer Citizens United will be holding a rally in Calgary tomorrow afternoon. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
The manhunt continues for former Olympic snowboarder and accused drug kingpin Ryan Wedding, with U.S. authorities offering an increased reward for him. The U.S. Justice Department now offering $15 million for information which leads to Wedding's arrest. He is alleged to be the head of a drug empire which transports cocaine across Colombia, Mexico, the U.S., and Canada. The decision to raise the reward comes after a new indictment was unsealed, which accuses Wedding of ordering the murder of a key witness in the case against him. CTV's Kamal Karamali has been following this ongoing manhunt and joins us live with more. And Kamal, this has the makings of a Hollywood movie, but it is in fact reality. Let's get to the allegations against Wedding and the co-accused.
Yeah, absolutely not a Hollywood script at all. A manhunt that's been happening for about 10 years, seeing that there was a warrant for his arrest back in 2015, but Ryan Wedding evading authorities until up to this day. Now the latest allegation and charge against him is that he orchestrated the murder of a U.S. federal witness who was set to testify against him back in January. That witness was gunned down in Colombia earlier this year, and now they've also increased the reward for his arrest, now up to $15 million USD from the previous $10 million. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said he's currently the largest distributor of cocaine in Canada and head of one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in the world, also accused of ordering dozens of murders around the globe, including in Canada, now also facing the allegation that he orchestrated the murder of a U.S. federal witness. Have a listen to what authorities had to say at a press conference yesterday.
You do not get to be a drug kingpin and evade the law. Make no mistake about it. Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. This Justice Department and this FBI will work with our Canadian counterparts and the government officials across the world to bring him to justice.
Wedding was a former Olympian snowboarder back in Salt Lake in 2002, and he was arrested in 2015 in Montreal after authorities say he was part of a large-scale cocaine trafficking operation. Now, authorities said yesterday their best bet and their best guess is that he still is in Mexico, but under the protection of the well-known and world-renowned Sinaloa cartel, and that he has been using their networks to evade arrest.
And Kamal, in addition to all you mentioned there were 7 Canadians arrested in connection with this case as well. We touched on it last night, a GTA lawyer. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, Wedding taking all the headlines, but there has been 10 arrests related to Wedding's work and charges related to him. 7 of those are Canadian, including, as you mentioned, Deepak Paradkar, Wedding's lawyer, allegedly advising Wedding to kill the witness in Colombia, saying if you kill this witness, the case will be dismissed. The lawyer now in custody and will be extradited and brought to the U.S. We also know one of the arrested was a former junior hockey player out of Alberta, Alistair Chapman. Just a string of connections happening here in Canada related to Wedding, but Wedding still evading arrest, and authorities now upping his reward, the reward for his arrest, up to $15 million now USD.
That is a lot of money. Wonder if it'll jog some people's memories. CTV's Kamal Karamali live for us in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
You're welcome, Michelle.
U.S. President Donald Trump has now signed off on a bill to release the Jeffrey Epstein case files.
But we will continue to follow the law, again, while protecting victims, but also providing maximum transparency.
The signed legislation will now compel the Trump administration to release the files. The Justice Department will need to release all files and communications related to Epstein, as well as any information about the investigation into his death within 30 days. But some documents could be withheld if they're related to an active investigation.
Staying in Washington, a funeral service is underway for former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney. Cheney died earlier this month at the age of 84. He's remembered both for being a driving force behind the U.S. invasion of Iraq and later as a vocal critic of Donald Trump. The White House says the sitting president was not invited to the funeral, but in attendance are former presidents George W. Bush and Joe Biden and former vice presidents from both parties.
Local health officials in Gaza say 5 people are dead after Israeli airstrikes, as Israel and Hamas accuse each other of violating their increasingly shaky ceasefire.
On Wednesday, several terrorists opened fire in an area where our IDF soldiers were operating in Khan Yunis. Israel made the decision independently to conduct these airstrikes and did not ask for permission to protect ourselves and our people.
No Israeli troops were killed in the reported incident yesterday, and Hamas has denied firing on them. The militant group is also calling on the U.S. and other parties to the ceasefire to intervene. The death toll from those airstrikes in the Palestinian territory over a roughly 12-hour period has risen to 33. European countries are pushing back against the U.S.-backed peace plan for Ukraine that would reportedly force Kyiv to give up more land and partially disarm. Two sources told Reuters that Washington has signaled to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that his country must accept a U.S.-drafted framework to end the war. European Union foreign ministers meeting in Brussels said they would not accept demands for Kyiv that would make punishing concessions. In Ukraine, Russia's invasion continues with nightly bombardments, killing civilians and causing power outages as winter sets in. Meanwhile, pressures mounting on Volodymyr Zelensky to take stronger action amid a corruption scandal in his government. The Ukrainian president has dismissed two top officials so far, while imposing sanctions on close associates. This comes after the government found $100 million has been embezzled from Ukraine's energy sector through kickbacks paid by contractors. The political turmoil hasn't calmed down, and there are growing calls for Zelensky to fire his chief of staff.
Hundreds of people in Indonesia are getting a look at the damage caused by a sizable volcanic eruption yesterday. This was the scene when Mount Semeru on the main island of Java sent ash and gas high into the air, impacting areas as far as 13 kilometers away. Nearly 900 people were moved to shelters. Indonesian authorities say they're still trying to get nearly 200 people off the volcano's slopes, most of them stranded hikers. The country's geological agency says volcanic activity has calmed down, but is still fluctuating as of today. Lindsay.
Well, it is that time of year already. Santa Claus is coming to town this weekend. The original Santa Claus parade in Toronto happening Sunday at about 12:30. Here's a look at the route. And if you're planning on lining it, well, the weather's looking pretty good. Mix of sun and cloud, daytime high 9 degrees. We're just going to watch for the chance of maybe a quick shower or flurry early in the morning. And if you're not going to be out in Toronto, there's a few other parades happening around southern and central Ontario, including Mississauga and Lindsay, Ontario. We're going to take you through a full look at the weekend forecast and beyond after this break here on CTV News at noon. Stay with us.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
All right, let's talk about the forecast. Pretty good start to the day. The afternoon looking pretty good. We've got some sunshine.
You know, when you have sun, it makes a big difference because, unfortunately, in November, I've definitely heard people comment that, like, after 3 o'clock, it starts feeling like night. And then by 4 or 5, you're just like, okay, it's nighttime.
Yeah, November and December, traditionally very cloudy months and short days, right? Of course, the days are getting shorter and shorter. So if we can get a sunny day like we had yesterday and like we're going to have today, we have to savor it. Although tomorrow looks pretty good too. We do, however, have a chance of showers in the morning, but it's going to be mild and also a little windy. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. We'll take one more live shot outside just to show you that sun shining right now. Oh, it's so pleasant. The winds are calm today. Again, they are expected to strengthen into tomorrow. In fact, they could be gusting to about 50 kilometers per hour, but those strong winds going to usher in some warmth. So let's talk about it. It's already decently mild right now, or should I call it seasonal? 5 degrees this hour in the city of Toronto. You'll notice that it is a bit cooler in areas like Trenton, 1 degree, -4 right now in Ottawa. And slightly warmer across the southwest, 7 degrees in Windsor at this time. Our forecast daytime high of 7 means that we are just slightly on the warm side of seasonal. Average temperature this time of year is about 6 degrees. So we're right where we should be, and the evening looks nice and calm. If you have plans, travel plans, roads should be dry, skies should be mostly clear, partly cloudy, and the temperature, this is interesting, through the overnight hours tonight is going to remain above freezing. So once we get past the evening, it's into the overnight that we see the possibility of maybe a little bit of drizzle. Just be mindful of that. But it's going to be a warmer night than we've experienced the last several. Here's tomorrow at a glance. 10 degrees, our forecast daytime high. It's always nice to go back into the double digits. We do have a chance of showers in the morning. Southwest winds will become westerly winds. And there's quite a few mild days in the short range forecast. Into the middle part of next week, though, signs of some cooler air coming. So that's ahead. Here's a look at the satellite and radar. Again, enjoying at the very least a mix of sun and cloud in some areas, mainly sunny skies. This disturbance in northern Ontario, it's not going to have a major impact on us, but it could bring some areas, isolated communities tomorrow, a quick passing shower. Here's what that looks like. First, we get an increase in cloud cover overnight tonight. There's about 9 a.m., so you can see just how scattered this is. It's not a washout of a day by any means. You might not even need the umbrella, but it may not hurt to bring it with you as you're venturing out the door. Afternoon clears out. Evening looks good, too. Communities east of Georgian Bay might still encounter a couple of flurries even, or rain showers. Saturday is dry, filled with sunshine. Sunday gets a little bit interesting very early in the morning, so perhaps pre-dawn, chance of showers or perhaps some very light snow, but it's not expected to last. And the daytime hours on Sunday look good. Mix of sun and cloud. Great news for Santa Claus coming to town. Look at these highs. Again, 10 degrees for Friday, 9 on Sunday. We'll be a little bit cooler at 5 degrees on Saturday, but again, we are near normal and will continue to be right through to the middle part of next week. Looks like we're going to get into some wet weather Tuesday and Wednesday. That's the weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. The Toronto Raptors were able to secure a 5th straight win when they took on the Philadelphia 76ers last night.
They've won 4 straight sets. Quick, the three. Rack it up. I'll take it.
The Raptors beat the Sixers 121-112 for their 5th consecutive victory. The win moved the team into 2nd place in the NBA's Eastern Conference. The Raptors will look to continue their winning streak when they take on the Washington Wizards tomorrow night.
The Maple Leafs will be looking for a 2nd straight win when they face off with the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight.
Free for Riley. Drops it back to Nylander. Pulls it around. Nylander backhand shot scores!
The Leafs snapped a 5-game losing skid with a 3-2 overtime victory over the St. Louis Blues on Tuesday. Puck drop for tonight's game against the Blue Jackets is set for just after 7 p.m. at Scotiabank Arena.
Still to come, a Brampton man is hoping his family tragedy can pave the way for changes at hospitals across the country. We'll have that story when we come back. A Brampton man who lost his wife to sepsis shared his grief at City Council at a meeting this week.
He called for change, which he hopes will have a ripple effect across the country. CTV's Adrian Gabriel explains.
A widower weeps in front of a city council.
She had sepsis.
On June 19th, 40-year-old Ravinder Sidhu arrived at Mississauga, Ontario's Credit Valley Hospital to deliver her 3rd child. 4 days later, she was dead. The initial cause of death, a Group A sepsis infection. Her husband is accusing hospital staff of ignoring her clear symptoms. The Sidhus aren't alone. On January 19th, 29-year-old Selena Klinger-Evans died in London, Ontario, 2 days after giving birth. A Group A sepsis infection is also listed as the cause of death.
It baffles me that in 2025, a 29-year-old woman can die from an infection from childbirth.
Both families believe their loved ones' deaths were preventable if the symptoms had been recognized sooner and antibiotics administered immediately.
For 2 days, she fought it with no help from the doctors and hospitals. She was just given Tylenol and Advil.
Gurinder Sidhu has been on a mission for change. It includes this petition with more than 15,000 signatures, which led him to Brampton City Hall, where council passed a motion unanimously calling for standardized sepsis screening, early identification, and rapid intervention.
I truly do believe we can prevent deaths. It's a cry for change, and this motion will be that change.
tragedy.
We're going to leave that story and go live to Brampton, where officials are giving an update on the deadly fire this morning. Let's listen in.
As they navigate this challenging and devastating incident. While the fire is under control, this remains an active scene, an evolving situation under the control of the Office of the Fire Marshal. I'm grateful to the Office of the Fire Marshal, Peel Police, and Brampton Fire for their efforts in bringing this situation under control. But unfortunately, we have 2 fatalities, 4 that are in hospital, and 3 that remain unidentified or unaccounted for. I would note, of the 4 that are in hospital, through their courage of leaving the building from the 2nd floor, that they are hopefully going to make it through this incredible tragedy, and they're certainly in our prayers. Even a 5-year-old boy who made that leap from the building. And as a father myself, where it shakes you to the core, speaking to the neighbors and hearing, their children in tears. It is a tough one for our community. In recent years, the homeowner, who is an absentee landlord, is out of the country for an extended period, submitted a building permit application to create a second dwelling unit in the basement. Obviously, this was a very busy location. The building permit was issued for a required set of work to be completed, including the homeowner's duty to request an inspection for completed work. A building inspector followed up, given the absence of required inspection requests. So there was a number of times where the city went to inspect the location. It resulted in an order to comply being issued on the property. The city followed established processes and took additional measures to follow up on required work. The city has taken a proactive approach to address landlords in our city that are not following the rigorous standards in place to ensure safety and compliance. We will continue to do everything we can to support those impacted by these events, and our condolences to the families of the deceased. And I would just add, it is still early days, and we'll know at a later date if there are failings to the Ontario Building Code or the Ontario Fire Code, but it speaks to why the city has had such a rigorous and aggressive clamp down on illegal units, because it creates, unfortunately, preventable tragedies. And this obviously is going to be investigated, but obviously as mayor, when I hear that investigations were refused, the entry was refused, it gives me great concern that unfortunately this is going to end up being one of those circumstances that could have been avoided. And it's just, our city has a heavy heart today. I just couldn't even imagine. We have the senior leadership that is addressing this, that is here, and they can answer any technical questions that the information is now available to us. But like I said, this is very early hours in the investigation.
Members of the media, just a reminder, one question, one follow-up, and please remember to state your name and outlet.
Janice Golding, CTV News Toronto. Can you just tell us, when did the absentee landlord make the application to change this into a multi-unit dwelling?
So I think the bylaw director can speak to this, but I think there have been attempts to gain compliance since 2019. And I understand from the neighbors that during that entire period, we've been dealing with an absentee landlord.
So for 6 years, this can continue, and you can't gain entry to actually make sure someone complies? I mean, how do they even get to rent a place out like this if they're not complying and you can't even check? How does that happen?
Well, maybe I'll have the director of bylaw speak to the tools that we have as a city.
Thank you for the question. It was an ongoing process. There was a series of orders to comply that were issued by the building department as the residents was going through that process, and they were in midstream of doing that, unfortunately, when this tragedy happened.
So how can this continue for 6 years and you still allow people to live in there? Why can't you just say, forget it, you can't rent this place unless you're compliant, and just kick everyone out?
Currently, we just do not have that ability to do that. We have a number of tools to get them into compliance, and that's what we were utilizing at the time.
Sorry, how many units was the house broken into?
And it's still early in the investigation. At this point, they hadn't completed the additional residential unit application, so we are not aware of those details at this time, and the investigation is ongoing. And again, the investigation's ongoing by the Ontario Fire Marshals. When that gets completed, we'll know.
Are you able to say what the issues were with compliance? What needed to get done?
And sorry, no, as the investigation's ongoing, we can't speak to those right now.
How frustrating is it for you? You tell us that you can't do anything, you can't go in there and evict people, you don't have the right to do that. How frustrating is it for you, especially when you see the consequence of something that, you know, you're saying could have been prevented?
Well, it's infuriating. It's why we've had a very public battle in this city about wanting to deal with slum landlords, and not to speak to this specific instance because we don't know all the details of what may be shortcomings in fire code or building code, but it's why we created a pilot project in the city specifically targeting some of these units where we know we've had units where there's 25 individuals living in it, and I've said I don't want to get a call from the fire chief about another tragedy. It's when we created this new licensing tool. I would note this is not licensed to have multiple tenants, and so all those details will come out as the investigation occurs. But I think this really speaks to the fact why it is so critical that if you're having multiple renters, that you adhere to building code and fire code. And I hope that we don't have to hear about another tragedy like this.
Mayor Brown, so this is not the first time this has happened, and you're acknowledging that there is no way for you to stop this from happening. So this itself was a 6-year process, and given that incidents have happened in the past, can nothing be done to address matters like this before a tragedy occurs?
So what I would say is that the pilot project that was launched called the RRL, and it's been launched in parts of the city, and our hope is to roll it out around the city, does give the city power to have entry. It treats rental units as a commercial license, and so it's a business. Under the current rules, if it's the city didn't have the power to enter, which is why we've taken these additional steps to provide additional tools to combat what could be unsafe units. And we probably had a weekly protest in the city against the changes we've made, but we've gone ahead, we've forged ahead with these changes because we believe that every unit in the city should adhere to building code and fire code. And we've had some very loud, aggressive protest against the new bylaw that we brought in.
Okay. All right, listening to Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown and other fire officials giving an update on a blaze early this morning there. 9 people lived in the home, 2 were renters, 2 people died in this fire, no ages or gender on those 2. 4 sent to hospital, 3 are still missing. But another issue that was raised, according to Brampton's mayor, the landlord was not there, an absentee, and apparently there were building permits that were requested to turn it into a multi-unit dwelling, and renovations to be done were also requested, but the city issued several orders to comply. Investigations were refused. Now, they're not saying this is the cause, but it is a major concern. There'd been this back and forth going on for 6 years. Of course, we'll keep on following this news. We'll give you an update at 5 and 6, and of course online at ctvnewstoronto.ca. Well, still to come, cottage prices are set to increase over the next year. We'll have more on what's behind the expected rise when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Prices in cottage country's recreational property market are expected to increase over the next year due to renewed activity and improved buyer confidence. That's according to Royal LePage's 2025 Winter Recreational Property Report released today. It predicts the median price of a single-family detached home in southern Georgian Bay will increase by 7% year over year. Last winter's snow also drawing buyers interested in skiing, snowmobiling, and resort offerings. The report says says while recreational buyers tend to be less interest rate sensitive than those in the residential market, the recent rate cuts have boosted buying power for many, motivating more to make a purchase.
The number of Canadian homeowners behind on their mortgage payments has fallen for the first time in 3 years. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says the national mortgage delinquency rate was 0.2% in the second quarter. That's down from 0.23% in the first. However, the number of people in arrears still trended up in Ontario. Delinquencies in Toronto alone increased 60% from a year earlier to 0.24% in the second quarter.
You're watching CTV News at noon. We'll have more news when we return. Stay with us. Well, it's Thursday already, and it's been nice to see the way the forecast was looking at the beginning of the week. It's really shaping up to have a lot more sun and warmth. We just have a little rain in the mix.
I know, and it's nice to talk about the weekend forecast when it's looking so good for various events happening around the GTA, maybe some activities that you want to do around your property. Here's a look at what we can expect for tomorrow morning. This is where we have perhaps our best chance of a little bit of active weather, and even if we get a few showers early tomorrow morning, they are expected to be isolated in nature. Look at those temperatures already in the morning. It's going to be a change from the last few mornings when it's been quite chilly early on. And then our forecast daytime high is 10 degrees. The only downside to that is it's going to be quite windy with gusts out of the west. Your weekend forecast looks pretty good as well. What you don't see on Sunday is the possibility of a few showers, maybe some mixed precip for the pre-dawn hours. The daytime hours should be okay for any plans that you have outdoors. And then into next week, chance of some wet weather returning to the forecast Tuesday and through Wednesday. Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.